Welcome to PM Express Business Edition. Well, they have been in town nowadays to ensure that you meet your commitment as a business and as a citizen when it comes to payment of taxes. But what has changed? Well, a lot of businesses complain that they have been aggressive in their approach. Is that right or is it wrong? Well, on PM Express Businesses, we're looking at the Ghana Revenue Authority and mobilization of taxes in Ghana today. Why has the approach changed? And what is the rationale behind this? I'm engaging the Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority. Commissioner General, thank you so much for your time and I appreciate it. And for a lot of people out there, they would ask, what has changed when it comes to revenue mobilization? Because the concern out there is that you are being too aggressive.
Thank you very much. Thanks, George, for the opportunity for us to chat once again. As far as tax revenue for Ghana is concerned, and I want to also take the opportunity to also extend greetings to our viewers, for that matter, your viewers, and to wish them a Merry Christmas, and also, even though the New Year has not started, to also wish them a Happy New Year in advance. Now, coming to your question, I think that a lot has changed and we cannot focus on just the issue of aggressiveness, but I believe that we are doing a multi-pronged approach, and a multi-pronged approach includes aggressiveness, but it also includes other incentives and technology and digitalization and customer service. In fact, you will get to know that this is the first time that for the last 2 years up to now we are focusing and having a dedication to customer service and trying to make sure that the taxpayer doesn't feel like just a taxpayer but a customer, and being given that customer experience. And therefore, I will not agree that it is only aggressiveness, but like I said, it's a multi-pronged approach, and each of these prongs have their own advantage and purpose for which you have to address it. I said recently when I visited one of the factories that was closed down and subsequently sold to another factory, that for those who are compliant, we don't have anything to worry about, because we'll make sure that it becomes easy for you to be more compliant. But for those who are not, we also have a chat with you and see what we can do. And if it still doesn't work, then eventually we need to apply the laws as they are enshrined.
But Commissioner General, some would say that it's not just about those perceived businesses that you want to see them as non-compliant, from the normal traders to the business associations to the office workers and the companies. There's been one song singing all of a sudden. They are all complaining that they have issues with your approach. They are all complaining that you are harassing them. They will pay their taxes. That leaves a lot to be concerned about for all these business associations who have suddenly been complaining in the media space, not just in the boardrooms and those meetings, that they don't like the approach of the Ghana Revenue Authority.
I think that we've had engagement with some of these people who are complaining, and sometimes after the engagement, they seem to appreciate where we are coming from. I've had meetings with TAG, I've had meetings with Guta, I've had meetings with other what do you call it, business groups. I've even had sessions, either myself or my direct assistants, with even embassies and their business community. So for example, we've had business with the Swiss embassy, and their people, the Swiss business community. We've had similar things with the UK and the UK business community. And we use all these to interact and to understand where we are coming from. So there's a lot of engagement among this. And this engagement is to ensure that we get compliant. And as far as the tax authority is concerned, I'm sure for those who have lived in places like the UK and the US, they all agree that maybe these areas are even tougher or maybe more aggressive than. But the key thing is the fact that as you continually create compliance by design, then you continually reduce the aggressiveness. What I mean by compliance by design is that for every effective tax authority, you have to create a system such that the process that you go through in your daily life and the service that you get in the daily life forces you to go back and file your tax. Or the incentive that you get also forces you or encourages you or entices you to file. So there are all these avenues that we are putting through to make sure that people pay their taxes. And you will find out that even in the budget for 2024, we know we'll come to that.
Coming back to,
but you see that there are even incentives that we are still even giving out to people. And so it's a multi-pronged approach.
Because some would say that after all these years, in terms of the workings of the Ghana Revenue Authority, we believe that now remotely you should be able to track these businesses. You walk into a shop and you have a branded GRA official just standing behind the counter. You go to a business and your personnel are all over. And sometimes it brings some sort of, people are not comfortable with this. You have the night patrols and your personnel standing at gates, events and all the rest. And some would ask that over the years when these things were not there, you were even overshooting your target. And that is why people would have cause to raise concerns about the approach and whether it is even sustainable.
Yeah, I think it's, if you look at it in terms of the tax revenue, we have been seeing significant growth.
Based on the actions that you've taken recently?
Based on the multi-pronged approach. So based upon the multi-pronged approach, so the actions are multi-pronged. What I mean by that is, for example, when we came out with the electronic tax clearance certificate, we made it very easy for people who hitherto will have to come to our office and come and request for a tax clearance certificate and then fill a form and then have to interact with people and then people complain about harassment even when you are trying to get a tax clearance certificate. And therefore we said, we don't need to come to the office, sit in the comfort of your home or behind your computer, just say I request a tax clearance certificate and immediately, instantly, you get a tax clearance certificate on your computer and you print. And therefore when we do such things, since the system is automated, the one who needs a tax clearance certificate does not need to go to the office. And the system will tell the entity whether he's compliant or not. And there's no way of you talking to somebody and convincing the person for the person to give you a tax clearance certificate for any reason. I remember there was a time you did some, I want to say Wiafe did some work and they are talking about going to somebody asking for a tax clearance certificate and then they said the person was asking for something. This is one of all become things of the past. Now, why am I talking about this? This is what I mean by compliance by design. So it forces you to make sure that you are compliant, because you know that if I'm not compliant, I won't get the tax clearance certificate. You understand me? And so that it makes it effective. And as a result of this, between 2020, I mean this multi-pronged approach, between 2021 to 2022, to 2021, we saw an increase year on year of about 26.5%. Between 2021 to 2022, you get me, from 2020 to 2021, we saw an increase of about 26.5% year on year tax revenue growth. Between 2021 to 2022, we saw an increase of 31.5% year on year growth. As we speak today, between 2022 and 2023, year to date, when you compare, that is up to November 2022 compared to November 2023, we have seen a 50% year on year.
And you would attribute that to these actions that should be undertaken?
That's what you attribute to the digitalization. We are attributed to more customer service. We are attributed to where we need to be aggressive, be aggressive. we attribute to the change in the staff attitude towards work and the eagerness to make sure that they deliver what the nation has empowered or called them to deliver. And these things are what are using the resource. And then also various methods of trying to seal leakages here and there. And so these are all
I believe that the physical engagement or the presence was meant for a purpose. Have we now moved past that stage, or we will still be seeing the manpower on the ground? Because it was about automation. We believe that going on ground to supervise is being done. Are we still going to see the manpower on the ground, or we have moved beyond that stage?
It is a gradual process. I have visited a number of tax authorities that have automated, for example. I think you are talking specifically the VAT.
Yeah.
And it's taken them a bit of time, because today we have about over 45 to 50,000 registered VAT companies or entities. And it's not all of them that can move immediately. And so you have to use, again, when I say the multi-pronged approach, for example, we came out with the VAT upfront, which meant that importers who are importing, and we have linked our two systems. So the domestic tax system talks to the ICAMs. And so when you are an importer and you have not registered for VAT and your goods arrive, we automatically see that you are not registered for VAT. So as soon as you're not registered for VAT, you automatically are required to pay the upfront VAT when you are importing. As a result of this exercise, within 4 months, we had over 5,000 new entities registering for VAT. And that's a compliance mechanism because the systems are talking. So that's technology, that's digitalization, and that is making it effective. Then we also talked about the men in the shops, as you were talking about. And so those ones also ensuring that, and you will be amazed to find out that anytime we put the men in the shops, you get an increase of between 100 to 200% on the VAT that people file and pay. So those that have moved onto the electronic system, we'll keep them on the electronic system. Gradually we'll be migrating, and as I said, it will take a bit of time, and you need an effective migration strategy. I'm sure some of us, when ATMs were introduced some years back, many people were not ready to use them. I'm sure when even bank transfers, those times we used to fill forms. And then when we brought in technology and say you can sit in your home and authorize a transfer, many people are still not doing that. At a point, banks had to find strategy like, say, if you come to the bank to do the form, we charge you $50. If you do the transfer, we fed the transfer from your home, it is free. So these are all strategies that we are going to use. But eventually, we want to take the men out and make sure that...
And are there any timelines to it in terms of taking these personal law? Because, again, it appears that most of your clients, these are the businesses, they are not comfortable with it. When I walk into an office and I see GRA officials all over, there's a certain perception I have about that business. And for some businesses who are tax compliant, it appears they are not comfortable with that approach.
I think it takes, I mean, like as I said, I've studied some of the other situations. You need about 2 years to be able to get these things.
So we'll still see the people on the ground for more than 2 years.
What I mean by when you need about 2 years, it doesn't mean that you have the people all everywhere. But like I said, as people are moving onto the platform, then you'll be reducing the numbers. And again, you know, when we say putting the people there, we don't necessarily need to put the person there perpetually. If the person comes there for 3 months, a trend is established. And then it becomes difficult for the entity to go back unless there are justifiable changes, some particular variables that therefore cause for your business volumes to change. Do you understand me? And so we don't actually put the person there perpetually. We don't have, because if we have 45,000 VAT registered people, and we have GRA, we have 7,000 permanent staff and some contract staff. So I assume that we have 10,000 people. This 10,000 includes everybody. You cannot go and put all of them down in the street and say go and vigilate. You understand? So they are, in fact, today the number of people who are out there currently are just about 300 people. You understand? Yeah. And this 300 is covering them. So basically what we do is the sampling and also over a period of time, and then they move us, and then it gives us the trend. Once it gives us a trend, we use the trend.
I'll be coming to the sustainability of this approach, and also to come back to you that being Christmas, and you wish our viewers and your clients Merry Christmas, am I still going to see officials of the Ghana Revenue Authority out there for lots of the events that will be happening, and even in a season where people sell a lot, I'll still be seeing your men on the ground, especially during the season?
Yeah, definitely. Well, as I said, we cannot say that we are moving away from it.
But I'm saying that would the action then be doubled up because of the season?
Oh, not necessarily. We will still keep the same trend, but we will not say that we are abandoning it. No, it is necessary, and we are seeing the results. And like I said, and I always also remember that when I say that it's a multi-pronged approach.
I asked that question because of the events bit, and I've seen your officials all over during events as well.
Yes.
Could there be another approach in assessing if George Wiafe is doing a musical concert today, that I can walk into your office, register the system remotely, or I'm still going to see a lot of these officials out there scanning and monitoring these events because people are under declaring and don't give you the right figures?
You notice that even for the invigilation, when we started, you notice that they were using papers to write. Today, internally, we have developed an app, and the app sits on the phones of the invigilators. As soon as they focus their phone on the invoice, it scans. It doesn't matter. The invoices differ from one stop to a shop to another. But the app that I have developed is intelligent to know which one is the money, which one is the item, and quickly would take it and instantly transfer it to the office. And it actually transfers it to the office for which this particular entity is registered. And this is an app that was developed internally by our own people. And so we are building on capacity, and we are continually improving on the system. And therefore, as I said, it's part of our mission. And so we will be going on that trend, and you see the reduction in the manual process.
Let's look at sustainability of this approach. And there are some who still want to question whether this approach is sustainable going forward, where you could then move to more remote systems, monitoring and all the rest, GRA itself taking over all these things as well. The sustainability of this approach.
Okay, so if this approach is what we are going to do for the next year, for the next 2 years, then the question of sustainability comes in. But I've already emphasized that that's not what we are going to do for the next 2 years, next year, because it's only a temporary situation, while the technology is also coming in. And so, yes, it's not sustainable, and that is why we are not going to rely on it for the next 1 year. Not at all. It is something that is, this is coming and this is going away. So the technology and then the improvements are coming, and then the manuals and those things are also going out. That's what we are doing today. I'll be talking about it very soon in terms of, it will surprise you to know that, I think I've mentioned it to you briefly, that 2 years ago or 3 years ago, there was no visibility about residents in Ghana and their income and account operations outside Ghana. There was no visibility 2 years ago. This year, as I speak, we have data of 70,000 accounts outside Ghana, coming from 45 countries. And that is the first one we have received. The next one we are expecting, which will come early January is coming from 80 countries. And for the 40 countries, the total value of the 70,000 accounts of Ghanaian residents outside is $2.8 billion. And when we started working on it in terms of looking at the potential tax, because it doesn't necessarily mean that when you have an account, but because we have to engage you and find out what's the source of the money and things like that, and then we'll be able to establish whether tax has been paid already or tax has not been paid already. And in 2 months, when we started, we've already, I want to say raised that means that we have collected. We have raised the tax liability of about 1.6 billion Ghana cedis, not dollars. I'm saying that the amounts, the balances that we receive is 2.8 billion. The tax we have raised in 3 months for only 400 out of the 70,000 accounts. It's 1.6 billion Ghana cedis. I mean, this is assessments raised. And I say again, let me be very clear that when I say assessment raised, it doesn't mean that we have collected, because these are initial assessments that you've made that would impact on you moving ahead to make the collections, right? Yes, so we communicated to the taxpayer that based upon this information, based on our engagement for you, this is what we think you have to pay. And so if you think that it is not accurate, or you have some information that you need to, you are free to bring the information, and then we'll look at it.
Does this fall under the double taxation agreement that you've reached with the other countries and developed countries, or on what is the legal basis of this action? Because there are some who might raise confidentiality issues about it, and the fact that I already meet my tax obligations in London and in US. Why do I have to share that information with you?
Okay, so we have the OECD agreement, and the OECD also have what they call the automatic exchange of information, and then the exchange of information on request. So there are 2 scenarios. And countries globally signed to this agreement.
And Ghana has signed on to it.
Yes. So far, there are about 150 countries that have signed onto it, which includes Ghana. And when you sign onto it, it doesn't also mean that you get automatic information automatically. You do what we call exchange of information on request. What it means is that Ghana can go to, say,
UK?
Djibouti or something and say, can you give information on this? That's on request. Now, the automatic one, all the countries that are part of it, and those who have satisfied the conditions to be able to do automatic exchange, will automatically send everything that they have concerning residents in your country, and you also send to them concerning residents in their country. So it's automatic, and it's a platform that is used. And so it is very legal. And once it's done like that, there are certain minimum requirements in terms of your technology, in terms of your data protection, in terms of your systems, and there is an assessment team across the globe that goes to the country to go and assess the country's system. And you'll be interested to know that Ghana is only the 5th country in Africa which in 2022 managed to satisfy all the conditions and therefore had been granted this. And I'm talking to you about technology. For us to be able to bring, we attempted it some years ago, and when they came, they just say you don't qualify. And then we noted what their concerns were, and we worked on them, improved on technology, improved on our systems, and they came back. And in Africa, even though we have over 52 countries or over 48 countries who are signed on, it's only we are the only 5th, and the other countries are South Africa, Nigeria, and a couple of others. And so once we have signed on, we have qualified, and you have to consider it because they also come yearly to assess your system. And once you qualify, you get the data coming automatically.
Commissioner, I know for you, your space or your concentration would be taxation and meeting the tax obligations and all those things. How does this also play in the space of money laundering and also being able to assess that George Wiafe, who is working here, has been able to move accounts and having about maybe $500,000 offshore in Chisos and all those things. Are you working with the other governmental agencies? What could be the impact of this agreement on checking money laundering and also checking the true wealth of individuals who have moved money to offshore accounts and all those things?
Okay, so we have what we, in fact, we just advertised in the paper. I don't know whether you have seen it.
No.
We've advertised what we call the Voluntary Disclosure Program, VDP. And so the Voluntary Disclosure Program, which we have advertised in the papers, requires that any resident in Ghana who has any such, any operations outside, should voluntarily come and disclose. And once you come and we disclose, we will be able to work with you and assess the tax that you need to pay. When we agree, we don't impose any penalties, we don't impose any sanctions. I'll come to your question about the anti-money laundering, and then you pay the taxes going forward. And this voluntary disclosure program, which has just been started advertising, will do a formal launch in January, and then it will run up to the end of March. So by the end of March, if you have not come voluntarily, then we will come to you. And the point is that we have the data. And I told you we got 70,000 accounts from 40 countries. Because when that was our first time we joined. Come next year, we are getting it from 80 countries. So it means that the number is going to increase. And you also tell you that in January, we have an anti-money laundering unit whose duty is also to look at anything that are anti-money laundering. And then they do link up with other governmental institutions like YOCO, FIC, and things like that. So we do have that monitoring as well. And so we look at both the income sources and also the tax potential or the taxable revenues or taxable funds that are available.
You've spoken about revenue. I'll be coming back to get more details about revenue. This is PM Express Business Edition as we look at the Ghana Revenue Authority and tax mobilization in Ghana today. Are they being too harsh? Are they being too unconventional? Getting some details and answers from the Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority, Reverend Dr. Owusu-Amoah. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to PM Express Business Edition as you look at revenue mobilization in Ghana today and the institution that is charged to do this exercise and whether the approach that they are using is unconventional but maybe getting the results or businesses don't appreciate what they are doing. The Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority, Reverend Dr. Owusu-Amoah. How is revenue doing with all these things that you've done? Obviously, you might be overshooting your targets and doing so well, unless the approach is not getting the results.
Yeah, I think that you all know that the times in which we find ourselves, we need a lot of revenue for a nation, for us as a nation. Number two, even though we are doing well, where we were and where we are trying to get to is still a far cry, or I mean a major task for us. As I've mentioned, we always say that today in the Africa tax outlook established for us at the end of 2021, that the average tax to GDP ratio for Africa was 16.0%. And then we, as of 2021, we are 13.7%. Our aim is to get to at least the average. And we are looking forward to, and that is why even though we must see an increase, we still think that there's more that we have. Not that we're
doing about 16% now.
No, we are as I said, we are about 13.7.
We are targeting 19% or 20%.
We are hoping that this year we should be able to enter into the 14s, because you know any movement means you have to move. Your tax growth should be significantly higher than your GDP growth in order for you to be close the target. So I want to say that many of the tax handles have done quite well so far.
VAT?
Yes, VAT has seen quite great growth. compared to the last year. I mean, over 50% growth. We have seen corporate income tax also grow significantly. So overall, we have also seen customs revenue. So as at the end of November, we have seen customs revenue grow about 45% year on year. And we have seen the domestic tax as a DTRD revenue grow about 54% year on year. And so on the average, we have seen overall growth of 50% between 2023 and 2020 over 2022. In terms of our target, I don't want to comment on it at this moment.
But obviously you're hitting. I mean, with all these things that you've done, if you are not getting close to your target, some will raise questions about your approach.
We want to continue and run the race to the finish line. And so we are not resting on whatever we have done. And I'm encouraging my staff and also encouraging our taxpayers that we appreciate what they are doing, and we appreciate they are recognizing their responsibility as taxpayers. And together, as a team, the taxpayer and the revenue authority, we want to work together and run the last 2 weeks so that we'll be able to get to a number that we will all be happy with.
It's often said that the last quarter of the year, there are a lot of activities, and often it impacts greatly on revenue. Obviously, you expect what is happening, especially even during the Christmas season, to impact on the numbers.
You're 100% right. I think that one of the things I learned in business school was that for the toy industry, they make 80% of their revenues in December, and then the rest of the year takes 20%. So it means that if you miss December, you are done. And so definitely, and I'm saying that just for on the lighter note, but more seriously, yes, normally December contributes significantly towards the revenue. So we are working on
And Commissioner, just to backtrack a little bit, so I also get from you that from these activities that you've done in terms of going out and showing that these businesses comply, they've also impacted on collections. So when it comes to VAT.
Yes, we have seen a significant increase in VAT. And as I said, we have seen a significant increase in corporate income tax. Even E-levy that people had concerns with. The first half of the year saw an average of 80 million per month. The second half of the year has seen an average of 100 million per month. So as at November, E-levy had done 1.1 billion as at November. And so we expect that we'll be able to end the year with about 1.2 billion for E-levy. And one of the things that, and when I talk about compliance, because we had established the platform, which was also monitoring. And then somewhere along the line, we still realized that some of the telephone companies and the banks were not passing all the transactions through the platform because we're doing our own revenue assurance. And what was happening that some of them they had not completely updated their system with the one unique identity, what do you call it, code, which is a Ghana card. So some of them were still using the Ghana card and other methods of identification. And therefore, for those transactions, if they for example, if you use your telephone number, and they know that this is your telephone number, and so these two accounts belongs to you, then in that case, they will exempt you. But what we said is that, no, let the system, the transaction come onto the platform. So once we force the transaction to come onto the platform, then they realize that George Wiafe's accounts in GCB, for example, is not using the Ghana card, it's using the passport. And so when it comes onto the platform doesn't see it as George Wiafe, and therefore it will charge George Wiafe. And so this has now ensured that they are all now making sure that they want.
Do you believe that this approach would impact on collections? Because even if we just restrict our focus on the transactions alone for last year, over 1 trillion Ghana cedis, some are saying that then we will not still be able to collect that much, or some are saying it is again the approach. How would this change things in terms of mobilization with respect of the tax type?
I think if you recall, the first year of implementation, we're doing about 50 million. I mean,
that was still small per the projections.
And then it went up to around 1,200. And then we implemented the reduction in 2023 when we reduced the rate from 1.5 to 1. And therefore, it came down also from the 100 to the 80s, as I've just talked about, 80 million. And I'm saying that the last quarter have seen we going up to over 100 million. So for this year, we have done 1.2 billion. I mean 1.1 billion as of November. And therefore, I expect that we end the year with at least 1.2 or close to 1.3 billion. And then from that, we are seeing the increases. And also, as things even out, and with the reduction in the 1%, from 1.5 to 1%, it's also making a kind of elasticity where people are responding, doing more transactions because the rates have come down. And so,
Commissioner, some would say that if mobilization is doing well, what is the advice to, in terms of the tax policy unit or the Ministry of Finance or even government? Because you've had some businesses who are complaining that, listen, it appears you are gradually killing the geese that is laying the golden egg. And it will be just a matter of time that you won't get any money against those taxes. They still believe that it is still a small group of businesses who are committed to compliance, are being taxed, overtaxed. Just yesterday, we saw the income tax bit on the ride-hailing vehicles. Every day we wake up and then a new tax is being implemented. These businesses are saying that it will get to a time that that geese that is golden can't give you the eggs again.
I think that we are constantly working together with the tax policy unit, with industry, with our consultants and accounting firms and other people. And we are constantly looking at better ways of doing things. For example, the real estate sector used to complain a lot about the VAT they have to pay in addition to the withholding tax. And if you look at it, the one who is taking the property was paying withholding about 15%. In addition, you're also paying the VAT of about 50% in 2030. Today, in the new for 2024, we have heard the cry. When I say we, I mean policymakers. And today we have moved it from what do you call it, the 15% to the flat rate of 5%. And that is a significant 10% off. And that is because we have, so there's a constant year.
Do I get you that you are listening to businesses?
Exactly. So we are listening to businesses. And then when you listen, you have to balance it. And then at the right time, you introduce such mechanisms to be able to improve. And then sometimes when you do this once too, it also improves on the revenue, because people get more compliant when, and normally when you are doing this ones, you also have to look at, we do a bit of research, and we look at the elasticity and the response to their particular task type, and it will let us know whether when it goes down you get more, when it goes up you get more.
Well, and if you are listening to them, they argue that they don't see that reflecting in your approach and the way you engage them when it comes to even the upfront payment of these taxes and the mechanisms to collect. But you engage people and they even argue that they are struggling on how to apply the VAT laws and all those things. But when this time is due, the authority is just demanding their money. You are not. They claim that you are not listening to them. Some are confused on how to even apply the VAT laws in collecting these taxes or collecting these taxes.
I think I'll just give you one example of a change from 15% to 10%, which also shows that we are listening. And I also talked about when I said instead of doing the aggressive approach, doing the system of compliance, we know in the 2024 budget we've also introduced the issue about if you don't get a VAT invoice, then that particular transaction will not be an allowable expenditure. And this is an idea that we thought about 2 years ago. And we are gradually have polished it up and it has come. So it means that if Joy FM wants to buy something or wants to engage somebody to do some job for him. I know sometimes, I mean, I won't mention names, but maybe you go out there, you engage a journalist to do something for me.
MCA program.
MCA program. When you finish, you just say 2,000 J. And
now they're charging VAT and declaring the taxes on all those monies.
Now, when you do that, it means that on your books, you say, I paid George Wiafe 2,000, and you expect that we should allow that expenditure. But once we say that if there's not a VAT receipt that accompanies the 2,000 that went to George Wiafe, then that transaction on the Joy FM books is not an allowable transaction. What's the meaning of that? It means that now Joy FM has to make sure that what George Wiafe is giving them is a tax, a VAT receipt. And George Wiafe as an individual can even walk to our office, and our office will do what we call what do you call this? Just like the way you are doing, you are going to a bank and getting a counter check. You can go to the office and get a VAT for your transaction. Now, why am I talking about this? I'm talking about this that, so you see that it's not aggressiveness. It's not coming to cane you, but just telling you that this is a system that we are putting in place. And that's why I say compliance by design. So these are all methods that we are using, because we all talk about constantly. I hear it in church, wherever I go, he said, but you see, there are people like this who are not paying the tax.
You are not going after, complaining.
And you are not going after them. You even said it, that we are focusing on the same people.
The former people, those who are registered, the people who are complying with the taxes.
But with this method I have just described to you, what is the implication? The implication is that now those entities who were dealing with what do you call it? Some people who are not VAT registered and just presenting their accounts and getting allowable transactions or items in their when they present their statements or their accounts. Now they will go to, and then what does it also mean? It means that George Wiafe now knows that if he's going to issue, normal non-VAT receipt to people, Stan Charles will not come and say, George Wiafe, come and MC my program for me, because previously George Wiafe was doing MC for programs, was not paying VAT, and was just doing it. I'm not saying you are doing it anyway. But and Stan Charles was again Stan Charles. I've just mentioned the name, maybe because they are the people who brought me up for a long time. So sometimes I end up keep mentioning their name. So
before Ecobank came in.
Yes.
but Reverend, I also want to get from you that, so for you going forward, I mean, looking at all these things, one quick thing I want to get clarity on whether it has been normalized. The issue about the property rates and the tax then. There were some concerns about it initially. Has those concerns been addressed now? What is the latest on it in terms of the implementation?
As you heard from the Ministry of Finance budget, there were initial challenges and problems which are still being resolved. And so the decision, as you heard in the budget statement, was to revert the collection of the property rates to the assemblies, whilst we try to address the issues. So for now, it's gone back to the assemblies. And then when all the issues are addressed, then... Have
they been that equipped to do this? Because the consensus has been being equipped that well to implement this tax collection or this tax type.
I think that for now it is the status quo. There are a few things that they have learned. For example, the issue about using Ghana.gov platform is one of the things that, even though we are not doing it, they are actually looking at it and trying to see how, as they are collecting, they can route it. Because if they do that, then the system is able to track whatever you are paying, and it becomes more difficult for people to collect the money and put in their pockets. They are looking at the system where they don't have to collect checks. So they are also looking at it because previously people will pay, just like it used to happen to us. They will pay checks and the checks will bounce. Again, they are also looking at how they can move away from the fiscal cash collection, which is also one of the things that we also used to have the same problem, where you have to come to our offices and queue and pay the money to a cashier or a teller. Today we don't do that. So these are a few things that they have picked up there, but we are working on a holistic thing. And there are a lot that, even for us, in the short time that we work with them, there are a lot that we have learned about the property rate. And I think that as a nation, we have to look at it. I mean, on a personal level, I have talked about it, and there's a need for us to look at even the law of valuation. Because currently, the law says that you have to value the property, each property. And if we have 12 million properties which were identified when they, because previously they had about 1.8 million properties, but then through this short term, we were able to move the number of properties to 12 million. And if you want to physically go around to all these properties to value them, it's a big challenge. But there are modern ways of valuing properties, and we need to look at it. There's an issue about the value, and the law currently says that the replaceable, material replaceable value of the property. Also something that in future we have. So these are basically some personal things I have.
Quick one on the appeals board. I've seen the billboards around. Has it, or is it operational as we speak right now?
Yes, I think so. Now it's fully set up. They have their office and they have the personnel. What they are doing is that they are finalizing their what do you call it? The procedures. And I know that they have some workshops. So I can say that they are ready for full takeoff from next year.
All other things being equal, it should take off next
because
year.
For now, I mean, infrastructure and other things are already, the people are also there. I mean, all the members and the chairman have all been identified and appointed. Like I said, what is left to just they finalizing their procedures. And so from I know some few people have even already appealed to them, so they already have some
a
cases
lot on their table to
some few cases
to review your decisions, of course.
Yes.
So I'll be getting more clarity as we move into the 2024 budget, and how is the Commissioner General working to implement those tax items and tax lines that have been announced in the budget, and what would that mean for you if you're a businessman and an individual? This is PM Express Business Edition. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to PM Express Business Edition to look at the Ghana Revenue Authority and tax mobilization in Ghana today. Let's look at the 2024 budget. And let me first get some clarity from you on this VAT amendment bill. I hope I got it right. It's still before Parliament. If Parliament should approve that bill today, is it going to take off on January 1?
In fact, you made a very, the if that you said.
Yeah.
So once the bill is approved by Parliament, normally in the approval process, there could be some amendments, some changes here and there. And so even though our team have already started trying to put together the parties' notes and the processes, we cannot come out of it until the final bill is given to us. Then you will notice whether there are some changes. Once you notice that, you have to now go back and then finish it. So it's the interval between the time of approval and then there may be another week or two or whatever it takes for us to also finalize the necessary documentation around it. So the aim is to start from 1st January, but the practical, what do you call it? The practicability, that's the word. Yes, is what actually finally determines. So once we get it, then we'll look at what we need to do, and then we will be able to say that, okay, effective 15th of so and so or so and so it will start.
I know, Commissioner, you with the tax unit at the Ministry of Finance, often you influence some of these things. There are still, and I stand to be educated about the application of the VAT input and the items that it should attach and the calculation and all those things. Is the Commission worried about that? Now that some of these amendments will mean that items that were not, for instance, look at insurance, non-life insurance products and all the rest, and these things kicking in. Is the Commission aware, or is the Commission worried that these businesses that are supposed to sometimes enforce these things are still struggling on how it should be applied on these items?
No, you need to clarify it because you see, whatever we do, like I told you from the beginning, our aim is not to make the life of the taxpayer more complex, but to make it easier. And so, if it's a new thing, we want to take our time to explain it to people and do the engagement. We'll send people to the FM stations to be able to talk to them. We'll set up desk where people can come and we explain. And so, whatever it is, our aim is to make it.
But the effective day is January 1, if it should be approved in the House today.
I did say that we will wish that is January 1. But then the ability to start from January 1 depends on when it is done, and then the effort we have to put in place to be able to put all the, what you talk about, the documentation and then the communication in place to ensure that people are well educated for implementation. And so that is what will finally determine it. So let's say, for example, we sit down, we know that, okay, we have to finish the documentation to take 1 week. Maybe let's say, for example, we say, okay, we need to start communication to the public. To take the communication and public affairs, we have to determine that by the time we go around all the FM stations, we engage the various stakeholders and industry players and the people who are affected. We take another 1 week. Then we use that one to now determine that it will take effect from so and so. Sometimes we have to engage and then see the effective.
But has these concerns come to your table about some people who had complained about how the VAT should be applied in 21.9, that some is lower than that, and some of the input costs and the products it should attach and all those things?
I haven't received any such comments yet, but when they are received, as an institution that also looking at customer feedback as an important factor in our operations, we will look at how best to make sure that things are made less cumbersome for our taxpayers.
Mr. Commissioner, are you worried about fatigue for these businesses? Because there's still this argument about they're thinking that every day there's a new tax item, there's a duty to apply. This VAT amendment bill itself will come with its own implementation when it comes to the taxes, the obligations on businesses that they have to comply with. And in your quest to improve compliance, is that also a worry to you?
I think paying your taxes is generally not an easy thing. And therefore, one of the things that we have said is that we want to make the task of paying the tax less tasking. I hope you understand. In other words, whatever we have to do to make sure that it is not the fatigue is reduced, we will be able to implement it. For example, if you engage the taxpayer and some of the things that needs to be streamlined, we do streamline it. And that's why we have also set up what we call the tax audit and quality assurance. And if you come to my office, we do have that unit there. And that unit that doesn't sit under customs nor under domestic. It sits directly under the Commissioner General. And when people have concerns, they go and do an independent approach. And I have seen, an incident where a taxpayer complained. When they went back and did the whole thing again and look at some of the things, they ended up with a credit for the taxpayer. Let me explain that. That doesn't mean that, tax is law. And sometimes in the interpretation of the law, one person could. And that's why we have, apart from the fact that we have the objection unit, which you can object to, if you also feel like the person is not treating you the way we want to be treated, we have the tax audit and quality assurance, who can come in even while the audit is going on to see how best they can control it. And I've also encouraged people that they all should feel free and raise such concerns.
Is it the best international practice when it comes to these upfront payments and later calculations are done for it to be paid to you and all that? Because there are some who say that when they make the payment, when it has to credit back to them, sometimes it takes a while, and then the authority is still moving on. Can we get to a time when this approach will change when it comes to these upfront payment of taxes?
Yeah, at the beginning of the year, if you recall, we launched or we relaunched what we call the service charter. And in the service charter, we committed to delivery of certain services within a particular time. And I mean, for many, and we have actually published as a book, and also it's also on our website. So taxpayers should take advantage and know what we have committed to do and within what time, so that they can also, what I would say, enforce their rights. So, for example, we are saying that if you make an objection within 60 days, you must come back to you. So, if within 60 days they have not come back to you, that's your right that we are infringing upon, and you can raise a question to the Commissioner General through either our tax auditing question or our customer experience unit, and they will take it up and make sure that it happens. So,
just last night, you issued the statement when it comes to this ride-hailing vehicles as well, in terms of some taxes that they should be paid. What informed the authorities' action to remind them that they need to pay some of these taxes when it comes to this ride-hailing apps and it comes to this income taxes and all the rest?
I think that sometimes people should understand, because it's the same people who say widen the net, widen the net. And like we started, you said we are focusing on the same people all the time, and we are creating fatigue. And then when we are trying to widen the net today, say, hey, why are you going to this area? Why are you going to this area?
Because people are worried about the impact on the cost of living, because these firms would definitely pass on these costs to them. If without them, and you might be hitting your target, maybe let's excuse them.
So then where is the widening the net? So I think that is people should, and sometimes when they say these things, they said in 2 years in I'll come out some sort of thing. It's important that we deepen and widen the net. And if there are some industry players, some sectors that are not in, it's important that we keep on looking at it, because if there is somebody doing a business and that business is not on, for example, we talked about, in fact, one of the things that we put in our strategy is the emerging business lines, and bringing those emerging business lines into the tax bracket. And when I say emerging business lines, this the ride-hailing apps is one example. The other apps that people use to buy things is one example. And I can tell you that since last year we implemented the what do you call it, e-commerce registration, we have seen a lot of revenue coming from that point.
How much has it brought in? Not specific, but just the range, maybe not specific.
In fact, we're getting roughly about 800 something million as at the end of it. We just have to check.
Yeah. Okay, all right.
But it has been significant, almost getting to $1 billion from that sector. I mentioned it at the last one of the events that I mentioned the figure. But the important thing is the fact that these are all business lines that are coming up. And sometimes the structure of the company is that you see those things. I heard you enjoy it from you say you are doing a program on is it betting?
Yeah.
Or there's something
there's
I heard
group about people,
about the fact that we are becoming so you are trying to look at that sector because you've seen that
you've already started applying some taxes in that area. Of course.
So that's what I'm saying. That so as the economy is dynamic and we see these changes coming, if you don't also become dynamic and open your eyes, when I say open your eyes, focus and build, we will not be able to live. So we want Ghanaians to understand that we have heard their cry for us to widen the tax net. And so we are looking at the people who are not already in. So when we are bringing them in, they should appreciate it and clap for us for bringing them in, rather than saying why are you bringing this one.
I think that
for example, the electricians, masons, artisans and those things, they are not in. When I say they are not in, I mean as the way you want it.
You cannot capture their work to tax them, this informal sector. Right?
Yes, and we are working on it. So when the time comes and we come out of the strategy of bringing them in, I hope we will understand that, and rather we say, oh, thank you for bringing them in. But as soon as that time comes, somebody will say, why are you going to them?
Let's look at the tax target in the 2024 budget and position to hit those targets.
I think so. I mean, it's an election year, But the target is 146 billion. In terms of the ability to hit that, I think that the measures we have put in place and the foundation that has been set is well able to meet that target. You know, as part of the IMF program, we have a medium-term revenue strategy, and this is part of the medium-term revenue strategy. And we think that we are on course and will be able to meet that target.
How has the compliance or the enforcement of the Ghana card itself also impacted on collections and being able to track individuals around?
Yeah, there's a lot we have to do as far as the Ghana card is concerned. So far, we have been able to reach out either through telephone calls or through visit or through text messages to roughly 400,000 people who were picked up from the Ghana card. And we are following up to make sure that they pay and also file. One of the things that is a challenge by which we are working on it is, as I said, the compliance. Last year we were trying to look at, by something we think we are working on it to see how we can make some government services. If you remember, if you talked about that, we need to make some government services subject to you having a tax clearance certificate. But this has not been received yet. When I say received, it has not approved. It has not been approved. Okay. Yes. And that's one of the ways that we can make the compliance by design, so that if you get and enjoying the service, you're supposed to have a tax clearance certificate. And today, what we have done is that the tax clearance certificate is actually automated in our system and can be pushed to every what do you call it, agency who, if we do this compliance by design, will be required to look into it. And once we are pushing it, there's even a technology now that ensures that when you push it, it does not become visible to the agent who is using it. So, for example, if I push it to DVLA and you go to DVLA and DVLA say they want to check on you, so, they might not even need to see what is in there, but the system will just tell them. So the thing comes in a system that you don't see what is in there, but it tells you whether it is compliant or not. So to answer your question, yes, we are working on it, and we hope that we'll be able to be more effective to bring more people through the Ghana card.
I knew that in the time past you issued a statement to clarify that position. But what is the rationale behind, or to get to understand GRA, about an institution donating to an educational institution when it comes to these helicopters, and GRA then goes in? Just moving away from that specific issue, what is the rationale behind that? Does it mean that now if maybe Kwabena Mensah is donating to the University of Ghana Business School and all the rest, he needs to do some assessment or to get some clearance from the Ghana Revenue Authority before Kwabena Mensah donates maybe a private jet to University of Ghana Business School?
Okay, we need to distinguish between the scenarios clearly. Donations are allowed, and in fact, the law still allows you to come to the GRA just to clarify that I want to donate this. I want to, especially when you want to do some huge thing that you want to let it become a disallowable expenditure on when you are doing your statement. Then sometimes you need to come to the GRA so that you say, okay, I'm going to do this, and when I do this, when you see it on my statement, it's an expenditure. You should not take it as what do you call it? So you deduct it when you are looking at my tax, and then it becomes non-taxable for me. Now, that is a completely different matter from the scenario that was being painted then. These are one, maybe because you so it's not specific, but I can go into a bit of it. That the company brings in a helicopter now, or maybe any item. That item comes under what they call temporary importation. So temporary importation means that you are coming to use the item temporarily, and when it's done, you will send it back. So when you come to use the item temporarily, and you don't want to send it back anymore, you have to pay the tax on the item, because we exempted you from import duties because you said you're coming to do it temporary. So if it now becomes, if it's moving from temporary to permanent, then the duty has to be paid. And in this particular scenario, it has been used to the time that the thing is no longer functional. And so it means that, in effect, the thing has not been brought in temporary. It has been brought in permanently to be used. And therefore, it is important that the taxpayer who brought in the equipment pays the right tax. So that's basically.
I knew that you were trying to get some oil marketing companies to comply with some tax obligations. They were in court and others. What is the latest on that? Have you been able to realize those tax obligations or tax due the state, or you're still in court?
We are still in court with many of them. And what I will say is that a number of them, the settlement agreement has been reached by at the courts, and the settlement agreement that has been reached has been deposited at the court, and they are paying. And so, but when you default, we have to go back to the court, and the court will take the next line of action. So far, there are about 35 of them who are in court, and there are about 15 of them who have actually been able to provide settlement agreement, and they are paying. When we started, the amount was almost getting to $1 billion, but today it is still hovering around 500 million. But the more interesting thing is that those are the old ones, the pre-2020 ones. But since 2020, we put in mechanisms and entire end-to-end control and measures. And it will interest you to know that previously, when every year we end up with over 500 million outstandings, as at November 2023, oil marketing company that has lifted, the outstanding is 6 million.
So it has been reduced also
significantly from the almost $1 billion, such that countries you have, because there are so many measures we have put in place, and it includes bank guarantee, restricted number of insurance companies that are allowed to issue. Because first we used to have many insurance companies.
And those mechanisms would actually deal with the.
So for now, it's a program that has been nipped in.
As we try and wrap up on this whole discussion, let's look at the multinational space. And I know you've been in court with some of them, especially even in the extractive space as well. What is the progress in dealing with maybe the legal people who say the lacuna or those ambiguities around the law, and going for it to ensure that they pay the right taxes to the state? I know there has been back and forth. Some have even gone on the international space to get clarity on the laws and all the rest. Have you been able to make any progress on these taxes that they're supposed to pay to the state?
Yeah, we are still engaging some of these companies. And then some of them also have gone for arbitration, as you want to say, or international, which we are also engaging in terms of going through the arbitration. In addition to, we also want to say that sometimes is the issue about their interpretation of the laws and our interpretation of the law. And we are working on all of them. Whatever we would take for us to get what is due to the nation, even sometimes it will take a bit of time. But eventually we'll get there. And I'm sure we have seen that some of them too, there are some of the cases that we've also won. And they have come to pay what's... But you stand by your action that these multinationals owe these tax obligations to the state, and therefore you're still going to press ahead with that approach? Yes, we have to press ahead. And if, like you rightly said, there are processes. So if internally they do objection, and objection doesn't go in their favor, and as I said, by January, the tax appeals board will also be working. They can go to the tax appeals board. If they also rule and it's not in their favor, they can go to court eventually. But at least we are putting the mechanism to make sure that it becomes easier for both parties. When I say both parties, both the tax authority and the taxpayer, by giving them avenues to seek redress.
Reverend Dr. Owusu-Amoah, I appreciate your time so much, and I know that we'll have another opportunity to talk about other very interesting developments in the industry. This has been PM Express Business Edition, as we look at the Ghana Revenue Authority and their approach in mobilizing revenue, and whether they are being so unconventional or that is the right approach to get the required revenue for the state. My name is George Wiafe. Have a great day.